Hello, my name is Carl Niji, and I'm what's known as a Davis Dyslexia Facilitator. I own and operate a business called Overcoming Dyslexia, ADD, ADHD, and Learning Disabilities in Ottawa, Canada. Today, what I'm going to talk about is an introduction video for a series of videos that I'm probably going to be calling Elephant in the Room series, or maybe even the Pink Elephant in the Room series. I haven't decided. The reason I'm calling it this series of videos is because in my own business as a Davis facilitator and in my own life, I have realized that there are these questions that are actually very difficult for people to get answers to. It's not because anybody is putting any intentional block up, I don't think. I think it's more just to do with how this subject that we call learning disabilities has evolved over the hundreds of years, or at least the last 100 years, and even probably further back than that, that people have been aware that there is this thing called a learning disability, or in the case of a Davis facilitator, what we will call dyslexia. These questions come up again and again in my office. They come up with when I'm talking to parents on the phone, when I'm talking to adults who want to do a Davis program, and actually just the children that I might be working with or the adult that I might be working with that week. They are also questions that have come up for me repeatedly throughout my life, and I have found them very hard to get answers to, mainly because the answers are really quite deep. And I think you also have to be sort of a cross-disciplinarian. You have to be able to sort of look at different pieces. And because we specialize, or people tend to specialize, we have the specialty of education, the specialty of psychology, pharmacology, neurology, and because everything is broken up, I don't think people are really talking to each other. I think also when you pull back and look, it's a very big picture. In order to describe that big picture to people, a lot of people don't have that background. So my own experience is I realized as I was growing up and as a teenager, as an adult, there were these questions that I couldn't get answered, and some of them were really big ones, and in the end they just turned into these elephants in the room. And every time I try to have a conversation about them, some people would give me genuine answers, but other people would try to avoid them. So that's really the name, where the name of the series is coming from. I also think it's very important for dyslexics who might be watching this, if you're an adult or a parent trying to get help, that you actually get these questions answered. Because I think when we don't get them answered, when we don't look at these elephants and really make friends with them, what happens is we end up getting into a fight with the school system, or blame starts creeping in, and before you know it, the whole thing has turned everybody apathetic and they just sort of give up. I know that happened to me, and I can see it happening to other people. So I think where I'd like to start is give you a little bit more information about me and my experience. The reason being is that I am in quite a unique situation, I realize, mainly because of how my difficulties that I've had, that I now call dyslexia, have sort of cropped up over so many years from a very young age. All the people I've been exposed to, all the people I've tried to try and get help from, all the different methods I've used, and then eventually finding the Davis program and now really understanding my dyslexia from the inside out. And also, after helping people for 12 years, I've seen the whole range of learning disabilities, as we would call it, in Canada, and how the Davis program can really make contact with somebody and help them to really get themselves unstuck. So I thought a little bit more about my past, and then that will be the end of this video. So I went to school in England. I went to a couple of private schools. I went to, I think, kindergarten was public, and then I finished off in public school, which is just like a regular state-run public school. I remember 3 tutors, but my mother only remembers 2. But one of those tutoring situations, I think, happened in a school system as well. So really at about age 12, it became very obvious that I couldn't read. It had happened earlier. I have earlier memories of that. Me and my mother have early discussions about help she tried to get me when I was younger than that. But my first really remedial intervention that I got was at about, I think, 12-ish. It was pretty standard stuff. It's stuff that we do today. It was probably, looking back, I'd say it was Autumn Gillingham based, not really multi-sensory, maybe a little bit, but there was a lot of repetitive drilling, flashcards, going over the rules that there are in the English language. And I did that for, my memory says, about a year. And then the reason that that was stopped and I stopped doing private was because I went to a school that said that they would give me this intervention work at school. My mother didn't want to keep on paying for it effectively. I had that intervention work from about age 13 to age 16. Again, it was pretty standard stuff. One part of it was pretty unpleasant, I remember, but generally it's not a lot of difference of what we do today as far as I can remember. And given the methods that they had, they haven't really changed. The delivery of them has changed, but what reading and writing actually is means they haven't changed that much, the way we actually help people remedially. That really didn't work for me. I left school 16 early. I'd been held back a year, so I was with 15-year-olds when I was 16, and I just left school at 16. I was done with it. And I would say I was probably semi-literate or illiterate. I then went to work for 4 or 5 years, generally in general construction. I would try to read newspapers, which were basically sort of the Sun and the Mirror, which is sort of blue collar worker level of literacy. So probably at a age of about a 16, 17-year-old, they're sort of grade 9, 10 level. But I was struggling to read them even. I really wouldn't get it. But I was sort of practicing as much as I could because I realized what this lock and key of literacy would do for me. And I was beginning to realize that more and more as I was beginning to work. I was realizing that I was working with men and women who had served their apprenticeships. They had got their papers, they were now journeymen, and I would always get a very low wage if I didn't get qualifications. So at age 21, I decided I was going to go to college and study as a fine furniture maker. It was at this time, when I was in college, at the age of 23, I was almost at the end of the program that I was doing, that one of my instructors came to me and said, "You are dyslexic. It is obvious from your academic side, and you need to get a piece of paper saying you are, or you're going to fail this course because you won't be able to pass the exams and you won't get extra time." I got tested. It was through a school because there weren't actually psych ed assessments, I don't think, when I was that age. It was in 1991, and I went to a small private school with a teacher who was qualified to give assessments for, and I don't remember it too much other than I remember the building very well because it was very close to where I lived. I remember the lady, that she was very direct and very honest, and I appreciated her honesty. She told me that she was very surprised that I'd done as well as I'd done given my level of literacy. According to the paperwork that I've just reread because I've kept it, I was reading at the level of a 10-year-old and I was 23 years old. I was spelling at an 8.5-year-old level. So I'm a 23-year-old man trying to do a technical course on fine furniture making with about 70% bench work, as we called it, hands-on work, and about 30% academic, and I was failing the academic. However, I now had a test. I now had a piece of paper for the very first time, and I was asked at that time, how do you feel about the fact that you're dyslexic, by one of my friends who was at college. And I said, I feel mixed. I feel happy because I now know that I'm not dumb, stupid, lazy, ignorant, that there's actually something going on. And I knew there was, but everyone else was sort of ignoring it. It's the first elephant, right? And I now had a name that I could investigate. However, I was also really angry because of the way I've been treated, because I had been called dumb and lazy, and I had been given this impression that I wasn't up to very much. And that was just sort of seeped into me from everything I had done before. So I had mixed feelings about it. Anyway, I managed to pass the exams. I managed to get my qualifications. I ended up getting my certificates, and I only just, on the academic side, I just scraped through. On the non-academic side, I did just fine. I also emigrated about a year later. I emigrated to Nova Scotia, Canada. I worked in construction there. I worked as a carpenter. I worked a little bit as a furniture maker. Eventually, I ended up in the film industry and sort of trying to run my own business. I worked in the film industry as a manager, and I was sort of trying to do a little bit of woodworking on the side. And as a manager of this in the film industry, I was doing a lot more paperwork, and I was having to do a lot more coordination and a lot more organization. And when it came to sort of practical hands-on stuff, fine. When it came to anything academic, it was an obvious struggle. And I would do a couple of hours every day extra. I'd get in early, leave late, have to do overtime, unpaid, just to get the volume of work done, because I clearly couldn't do it. So my sort of dyslexia had caught up with me again. And I decided that I would go and try to do something about it at age 27. This is now. This is in 1995. I went and got tested again for the second time. And at this point, it was actually a full psych ed assessment. The only bit missing was the bit that was going to get handed into the school because I wasn't going to school. At this point, my reading age was somewhere between a 9-year-old and a 12-year-old. And my spelling was, here it says 8 years old. Now I'm assuming that discrepancy is maybe my age and also maybe slightly different testing. But that puts me in that, still in that age 10. At the low end, I'm reading it as a 9-year-old. At the high end, or maybe on a good day, I'm reading as a 12-year-old. So not a great deal of improvement for a 27-year-old man trying to help run a business. It was hard work. I decided to do something about it. I took the course that they recommended. I did it over a period of 2 years, and at the end of that, they retested me. I thought that I would, after that intervention, it was phonics. It was mainly Autumn Gillingham. There was multi-sensory work as well. There was a lot of flashcards. There was nonsense words. Again, teaching all the rules of the English language. So I'd sort of felt like I was maybe getting somewhere as an adult, and I was working incredibly hard. I was doing things 3 times a week, trying to get through this work. At the end of it, they said, right, it's over, it's finished, you've done the coursework. And I said, well, could you test me again? And they did. And at this point, age 30, my reading level, or my reading age, was between a 13-year-old and a 15-year-old, somewhere in there. So after 2 years of intensive intervention, as an adult, I felt that I should have been able to read at a grade 12 level, 18 years old, adult. That's what I thought. That's what I thought the whole point was. That's what I wanted. And I was not doing that, clearly. That really annoyed me. I still was reading every day. I would practice at home. I'd try and read things like The Lord of the Rings and novels and chapter books. And I had to do it at work as well. And I was really annoyed about 2 years later, where I felt like it was falling apart again. I felt like it was getting worse, not better. And that's where my journey with traditional methods sort of stopped. I realized that, and I probably realized at a younger age, but at age 30, I could really articulate that what I wanted was somebody who had the same problems as me, someone who was dyslexic or learning disabled or ADD, whatever label you want to put on there. I wanted someone who had what I had, but had found out more about it. And that's what I went looking for. It took me another 10 years to find, actually my sister found a brochure for a Davis program. I went and spoke to that person. I went and did a Davis program, and it really changed things. The first hour on the phone with the lady who I did my assessment with and then my program with, she was answering these elephants that were in the room. I had some pretty hard questions that I sort of boiled down at that point. And if you couldn't answer those questions, I was done with it. And she could answer all of those questions for me. That was a real change in my life. I did the program, I did the follow-up work, and 6 months after I'd done the program, I was in Texas doing my first module as a Davis facilitator. A year after that, I was qualified, I'd met Ron. I think half of my training was with Ron. I'd been to his house for dinner. I'd asked him every question I could think of, and I was on the road to helping other people. Well, that was over 12 years ago, and I've had 12 years helping people with a range of difficulties, everything from a mild at risk for a learning disability all the way up to severe labels that you wouldn't associate with dyslexia, but quite clearly are being caused by what is causing the dyslexia. I've worked with everything from as young as 6 years old up to 54-year-old. I had a 54-year-old man who came to me and said, "Carl, I just want to be able to read a book." He'd never read a book in his life. 6 months after his program, he read 2. And he was chomping through reading and really enjoying it. And he'd had a complete turnaround. So someone else similar to me had a big turnaround. And I've worked with pretty much every level of disability and every level of difficulty and every label that are in this sort of spectrum that we call a learning disability. I've helped to those people and work with those people, and it's remarkable to me that every time we do Davis, there is some impact, and usually pretty dramatic in a way that we don't see from other methods and from other ways of looking at this subject. And that's really to do with who Ron Davis is, the fact that he was or is dyslexic and was and is autistic, and he found methods to really help people on both of those spectrums. And that's really the first pink elephant that shows up, and we'll discuss in the next video in more detail. So that's really more about me, my background, and why I am in, really, I suppose, I don't know if it's unique, but it's certainly an unusual position of somebody who has had a lifelong experience of trying to understand my dyslexia, trying to understand what I can't read, doing a Davis program, and now helping other people for over 12 years with this material, who are coming to me reading way below grade level, and by the time they finish the Davis program, they're actually, and they've done all the work that they need to do, the follow-up work, they are reading at grade level or very close to it. So that's really where I want to end this video today, other than to say the questions that come up, these elephants in the room, we really need to answer them. We need to make friends with them, we need to articulate them and get answers for them. When we do that, the Davis method allows us to do that. Now, not everything I'm going to talk about is Davis related. Some of these things I learned from being a Davis facilitator, some were before, some were after, but they're really these questions that I feel parents need to understand if they are going to move the difficulties they're having forward. I think these questions and these barriers are also what stop parents from doing Davis, and they may stop people from seeking help. Other than that, so I think that's it really for today. If you'd like to continue this conversation with me and you live in Ottawa, Canada, please go to my website below. If you're anywhere else in the world, I suggest that you go and find the nearest Davis facilitator to you. And you can do that by going to the link below, which will be Davis International, or it will be DDAI. And that is the main Davis page. It's the main international website, and you'll be able to go on there. And there is an area there that you'll be able to find a listing for the nearest Davis facilitator to you. So that's it for now. Please like, share, and subscribe because it does help the algorithms on YouTube, and I will see you in the next video. Bye for now.